Welcome to the Unapologetic with Janine McKinnon podcast, helping you step more fully into your feminine, unapologetic authenticity. I'm your host, Janine McKinnon, confidence and sexual empowerment coach, who went from the trenches of 2 kids under 2 years old, feeling exhausted, overwhelmed, disconnected, and resentful, to creating a life I'm obsessed with, full of passion, presence, pleasure, and playfulness. I love myself, I love my marriage, I love my kids, and I love my life. And I want to help you feel the same level of love and fulfillment in your life. Here you can find inspiration and tools taken from my one-on-one coaching sessions and group experiences to support you in your journey. We'll cover things like societal conditioning, inner child healing, women's empowerment, and tantric and Taoist principles to inspire you to live a life you love while embodying your feminine, unapologetic authenticity, and in doing so, creating a ripple effect throughout your life, your family, and everyone you interact with. Thank you so much for being here. I'm so grateful we're able to connect in this way, and I can't wait to dig into the contents of this episode with you. Without further ado, let's get into it. Hello and welcome back to our Unapologetic Story segment. And this week I am actually switching it up a little bit. Generally, I feature stories of unapologetic women speaking about their story and embodying their unapologetic authenticity. But today I have a man here with me sharing some male perspective sides with Philip Wride, who is here to chat about really embracing who you are, breaking free from those chains, and creating a life of freedom. So I'm really excited to see where this conversation goes. And one thing that I found interesting when I was reading your intake information, Philip, is that you said your go-to karaoke song is Don't Stop Believing by Journey. And that makes so much sense to me when I read about your story and all of the different things you've overcome with your injuries and different things like that. I'm curious, was that always your go-to song? Does it have a real big personal feeling for you, or has it morphed and changed over the years?
I think it's morphed and changed, and thank you, Janine, for being here in that introduction. I think it's morphed and changed because I've changed. And actually, if I think about it, I was never really a big one for karaoke in sort of, what you may say is my previous life. Now it's like, you know what? Why not? Get involved, do something different. So it has become my sort of default karaoke song. There are a couple of others that I go to as well. Queen's Bohemian Rhapsody is another one.
Classic.
Classic, yes, absolutely. You can get everybody involved. It's great. But there's 2 things that I like about Don't Stop Believing. Obviously, the whole nature, the lyrics of the song, but there's a really good guitar solo as well, which I'm a big fan of. So again, there are other tunes and songs. It's like, if you just want to get into it and feel it, sometimes those guitar solos and the riffs and everything else is like, yes, I can feel that energy of someone just up on stage saying, you know what? I'm just going to let loose. I'm going to go for it. Here we go. Let's see what happens. And, that's the sort of thing that draws me in and why I love the song.
Yes, it is one of those where you can really get into your body, into the feeling of it. Like you said, just let loose, have fun with it. And I like that you said that it's kind of a new version of you thing to do karaoke to begin with, that previous versions perhaps didn't. I've never actually been a big karaoke person, but as you said that, I'm like, maybe that's something that would be fun to play with now, because previously I would be way too worried, like my voice doesn't sound good, everyone's going to be looking at me, like all of those internal beliefs and stories would be going through my head. And so that was just something I never really got into. But now where I'm at the state of embodiment and really embracing my unapologetic authenticity, I could see having a lot of fun just getting up there and getting into it.
It's doubly fun for me because I've also given up alcohol. So when I go with friends, they've all had a drink. I haven't, which means the general perception that I have is I can see you and hear you butchering a song you don't care because you're drunk. You feel great and think you sound great. And I'm just stood here going, this is funny because I can play this back to you tomorrow and remind you of how bad you are.
That's another really great point. I'm not much of a drinker either, so I could see myself being the sober one up there. And when you think about it that way, it's like, oh, really? Who cares? Like they're all doing their thing of the flow of alcohol. They're not thinking that much about you. Yeah. And so I would love to hear a little bit more of your story. When I was looking at your book or reading through your book, and you talked about your injury specifically, and I can imagine how hard it was to deal with that, the impacts on your life. And also, what really stood out to me is how you made your choice to move through the healing process in a way that felt aligned for you against doctors' recommendations. So I would love it if you could just share a little bit about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So January 2020. The world at large recognizes 2020 as the year of lockdowns because of COVID. But for me, it started a little worse than most. So in January 2020, I broke my neck playing rugby. Got my head in the wrong position going in for a tackle. Somebody's thigh running at me full speed straight into my face, which is not ideal. But I didn't know it was broken for 7 weeks. Because after the collision and the impact, I got up, couldn't move my head, and my neck just felt really stiff, as if I'd done a really hard gym session. I was like, okay, this will ease off after a bit, it'll be fine. A couple of weeks, went to the club physio, had some more physio, had some more, and he was like, yeah, this is not really doing anything. There's still no real range of movement there. Maybe you should go and get some scans. So it was 7 weeks before I even knew that I'd broken it. And the consultant, when he came back after I had the scans, sat me down and was like, yeah, your C5, C6 vertebrae, which is towards the bottom of your neck, it's broken. We suggest plate and screws, surgery, probably 3 to 6 hours. So we'll go in from the front, put plate and screws in, sew that up, turn you over, go in through the back, do the same sort of thing, make sure it's all in place. And I was like, that doesn't sound like fun for me.
Yeah, not an enjoyable process.
No, it's like, I'm not sure I really want to go through that. It was also a tough situation because the hospitals have started to be locked down and only dealing with sort of emergency cases. And I had a challenge with some of my insurance as well. I didn't have the funds to pay for surgery and the insurance were being awkward. So I was like, okay, I'm going to take what some would say is a silly decision. And I'm like, I'm not having the surgery. I'm just going to walk out of here. I'm going to put faith in my body and see what happens. Because I'd healed other injuries before. So just before my 21st birthday, I broke my ankle playing rugby. Suggested to have surgery on it. Wasn't essential, but I was like, no, that's fine. I'll just see what happens. I'll just put the cast on it, as a lot of people do, and went on my merry way and then spent, my 21st birthday in a nightclub with crutches, just wheeling them in the air because there's not much else I can do with a cast on. So I already had some experience of saying, I know my body has the ability to heal itself. Okay, this is slightly different. This is now my neck. But I'm going to put that faith in myself because realistically, I didn't have a choice. I couldn't afford the surgery. So it's like, even if I did want the surgery, which I didn't, I couldn't afford it. So the easy decision was, right, let's just take that off the table. I can't afford it and I don't want it. So what's the alternative? Okay, put the faith in. Let's see what happens. So a large chunk of sort of March to September of 2020 for me was trying to support my neck, soft collar, trying to work out how I could sleep, protecting it, trying to get the movement back and ease it off, whilst also dealing with the lockdowns for COVID. So that was impacting the business. So I had two sides and two things to try and deal with. One, the body and healing, and the other of how to actually keep my business going. 2020 was an interesting year for me.
It sure sounds like it. And it also sounds like things really did come in alignment, even though in not the best kind of way. But when it came to the option for surgery, it's something that you didn't really want. But adding on not being able to afford it, thinking about what the whole hospital process would have been like and with the different lockdowns and different things like that, it almost sounds like it helped solidify and really nudge you even more into embracing that decision that you felt was true for you. And I feel like it's a hard one when it comes to your health. And I know I've experienced that myself where I've been suggested to go to the hospital, do these certain procedures that are just the way that they do things. And it's like, no, there are other options. They might not be widely spoken about, but we do have an incredible power to heal our bodies within ourselves. And it takes a lot of trust. And it is hard when it comes to your health and thinking about the impact those things can have on your life, on your well-being. We're taught to have all of this trust in the medical establishment and these experts that we're looking to for advice. And then to go against that and just double down on yourself and what you know is true. I think that takes a lot of courage and is really a thing of strength to be able to commit to that and move forward with it.
But I think we can do that in all areas of life. You know, okay, we're talking about the situation here of healing my body, but putting that faith in yourself, feeling that you have the power inside to be able to do what you feel is right. Well, that's the same in any situation. Building a business.
Absolutely.
Trying to chart our path through life. You know, if we take that decision that says, this is what feels right for me, I'm going to explore it, I'm going to have to go with it. Yes, there may be ups and downs. That's one of the reasons I've been an entrepreneur since the age of 16, because I've wanted to explore. I've wanted to see what I could build, where I could go, what I could get involved in, something that feels right. For me, don't get me wrong, you know, I've had office jobs, I've done the 9-to-5s, I've worked for the big corporates, but even when I was doing those roles, I still had side hustles because that was a way for me to express myself, to have a level of freedom to do that exploration and see what happened.
Yeah, and it's like having that space for exploring and following your curiosity and building and doing those different things really helps keep that aliveness to it when a lot of different people, when they're stuck in that corporate world, the 9-to-5, it can suck some of that away if you don't have some sort of space, some sort of container to really allow the space to play around with that. And I think that flows really nicely into a big part of your book is those different chains that hold us down, because a lot of us have these different desires or these different things that we want to build or create or move or this or that, yet a lot of people aren't taking action on it. Right? There's so many people that are in their corporate job that they hate, and it's not that all jobs are the worst thing ever. And there's a ton of people that hate their 9-to-5s and they desire something different, yet they don't make those steps. And I think you've done a really great job in your book in identifying and bringing clarity to 12 key chains that really do hold us down. And when we have that clarity, it really helps us to identify these different things we can work on and being able to break through those chains and create that life we want. Would you be able to expand on what those chains are?
Yeah, absolutely. Before I dive into a couple of them, I think the experience that I've had, obviously the injury, trying to keep things going through the lockdowns, my journey before that and some of the experience that I'd had, building businesses, closing them because of, financial crash in 2008 and various other things. It's like, I recognize these chains in my own life and the conversations that I've had with others. And I think the challenge that a lot of people face is it's like, yes, they have that vision for the life that they want. They're not sure on the next step. They're not sure on what it is that they actually need to do or move to be able to say, okay, now I can take a step forward. Now I can work towards what it is. You mentioned that being in that 9-to-5, some people feel it weighs on them. And I get that. I've been in that position. So the question is, what can I do? How can I get out of this situation? What do I need to do to move forward towards that vision? And that's really the essence of the book, is to say, I want to help you uncover 12 things that I recognized in my own life were holding me back, some of the changes that I needed to make. So I'll touch on a couple. Relationships, a big one. 2 types of relationships. And in the book, I write about putting them on a spectrum. Simple exercise. Again, for my brain, it was just like, I need an exercise that, I can think about and write down and then come back to. So all of the exercises that are in the book, these things are easy for me because, it's lists, or it's, okay, take a log of this, or, think about that. It's like, okay, that makes a lot of sense. So for relationships, positive and negative, just score all your relationships on a scale of 1 to 10. So that's friends, that's family, that's colleagues, that's your boss, it's the people you meet down the street or at your local community group, or whoever you come into contact with for 2 or more hours a month. Give them a score, 10 being positive, 1 being negative. Anybody who's a 6 or less, question mark. Do you want to keep spending time with that person if they are not fueling you? Because if we spend time around people who, all of their conversation is negative, that has an impact on us. It trains us, it makes us feel horrible. And there's no point in that. If we're feeling like we're in a 9 to 5, we're not fulfilled, nothing's changing, we have a vision for something else, it may not necessarily be the work that's getting us down, it might be the people. Then there needs to be a change. So relationships are one of those 10 chains. And yes, it may be friends and family as well. If we're trying to grow and change as people, maybe we outgrow the people we're around because they're on a different journey. They're on a different path. Some of the people that I grew up with, yes, I don't speak to them anymore because we've gone our separate ways. I fired one of my biggest clients because the relationship was negative. Yes, the revenue and the money was great, but the situation, the type of work, the fact that every time the phone rang, I picked it up and I was like, I'm filled with dread. I don't know what he's going to ask. I was like, that's not helpful for me in terms of feeling comfortable in what it is that I'm doing and trying to build my way towards the goals and dreams and visions that I have for my life. So yeah, relationships is one of the big ones.
Yeah, relationships are huge. And something my husband and I talk about quite frequently is that saying of you're a culmination of the 5 people you surround yourself with. And so really being intentional about the kind of relationships you have, the people you're surrounding yourself with. Are they pulling you down? Are they draining your energy? Are you being filled with dread whenever you see that phone call or that text message? Or are they fueling you? Are they celebrating you? Are they calling you forward? Are you able to really have enjoyment and connection within these relationships? And one thing Rachel Rogers, I believe, talks about in her book, I want to say it's We Should All Be Millionaires, but she talks about doing a relationship audit every year. And so every year doing what you touch on and rating all of your relationships, whether they are friendships or work, and taking a good hard look at that because they do change from year to year. And it's not something that we just do at the time we're going through this. It's something we need to intentionally bring into our life on a regular basis and really taking a good look at this. And again, taking action on what we find through that process.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, relationships, one of the key chains. It's actually a chain at level 1. So the way that I've structured the chains, and I'll go into a couple more, is there's 4 chains at level 1, which are the chains of self-directed action, the things that we have a bit more control over. Okay. Chains at level 2, external influences. So that may be influences from work, from friends, from family, from the environment that we're in. Okay, influences our ability to manage and break those chains. And then the ones at level 3 are the mental images that we create. So I'll go through 2 of the ones that include mental images. Fear is one of them. We create mental images normally they're the worst case scenarios of the things that are so unlikely to happen, but we create them in our mind, and because we think they might, we stop ourselves from taking action. So in the book, I write about skydiving because for the longest time, my fear was, I've got an image of my parachute not opening, me plummeting to the ground and going splat. Which, if you think about it, is a horrible image to create. But the chances of that actually happening are very small. And when I actually finally went skydiving, it was an amazing experience. It was magical because, okay, yes, you tumble out of the plane, but then when the parachute's open and you're literally floating and it's so peaceful and you can't hear anything and you just look out at the landscape. So for me, it was great because I did it over the Palm in Dubai. So with the landscape, shape of the Palm, you can see all the big hotels and the landmarks around Dubai. It was amazing.
Wow.
And I've got the photos and the videos that I can look back on. It's just like, yeah, that is an experience that will stay with me. But for the longest time, I had created that image in my mind of what if, what happens if it all goes wrong? This could happen. We need to get away from that.
We really do. And it holds us back in so many ways with those bigger things like skydiving, which that sounds like an incredible experience and definitely something on my bucket list as well. And it's also in those smaller everyday things. Like I know myself, I used to hold myself back for like fear of the conversation I would have to do the thing I wanted to do. And that, like seemingly simple, is a way so many people hold themselves back every day, multiple times a day. And it's rarely as bad as we make it out to be.
Yeah, so another one, like creating content, posting it, gaining visibility for who we are or what it is that we're trying to build within the world, and worrying about those negative comments. And so we stop ourselves from taking the action because we have that fear of what's somebody going to think, what's somebody going to say. And I love the school of thought that says you are not making progress until you get negative comments, because that means that whatever it is that you're saying is having an impact. Okay, somebody may have taken it and for their view of the world, it doesn't connect. That doesn't mean it's wrong. But as soon as you get to that point of receiving negative comments, your message is getting out there. You're having an impact. So it's like, don't stop yourself. You need to get to that point. So don't fear it. Go through the act, take that action, go through the steps, put the content out there, gain that visibility, say the things that you want to say, and see what happens. And actually that leads nicely onto one of the other chains at level 3, the mental images, perception. We have perceptions of people, the world around us, situations, but we also then create those mental images of what we think other people think of us, which is a mouthful to say, but it's like, what do they think about me as I'm wearing this outfit? What do they think about my actions? What do they think about my hair? It's like, why do we need to worry about those things? That's just holding us back. And in the book, I write about it. So I've always been one for pink shorts, flowery shirts, bright colors, just to express myself, because it's like, why not? I've been working in a corporate world in the tech industry, which is what? Browns and grays and blues and really dull and boring colors. I'm just like, forget that. Life's too short. One of the first dates I went on with my partner, I went with my parents as well, I wore yellow trousers because why not? Who cares?
I like it.
Which actually then leads to one of the stories that I put into the book. So I was a volunteer at a Mind Valley event in Dubai. So if you're not familiar with Mind Valley, it's a network, again, personal growth and self-development, lots of courses, lots of world-renowned speakers, do the live events and then put content onto their platform. And so they were hosting an event in Dubai. I signed up to be a volunteer, and my responsibility was the VIP party. So an after party after the event, welcoming people, helping them understand the activities, how to, get their free drinks, all that sort of stuff. And I was like, great, opportunity to express myself. So I looked in my wardrobe, I was like, right, let's try and pick out the brightest things that I can. And so this is before I wrote the book.
Mm-hmm.
I picked those yellow trousers, and I also picked a nice bright blue jacket. So I had a flowery shirt on, bright blue jacket, sort of blazer jacket, and yellow trousers. I was like, great, the brightest colors that I've got. Woohoo! And so I went, and one of the first comments that I received was, oh, I see you're supporting Ukraine. Because the colors of my outfit matched the flag. That was not the comment that I was expecting. And this is where perception is an interesting one, because it's like my perception was bright colors, I love it, I'm gonna be able to stand out. Somebody else's perception, very different. And it's other people's perception that we often let hold us back. And I, yes, for the rest of that evening was more conscious. Obviously, this is before I've done the work and I've written the book and everything. And now I look back at it and go, yeah, silly to think and worry about what other people are thinking, because that's not what it's about. It's about you and your experience and what you want. But at that time, yeah, for the rest of the evening, I was conscious of, okay, so how many people in the audience think you're brave for wearing those bright colors? And how many people in the audience think, what have you done? So yeah, perception, again, the images that we create in our head of what other people think about us, we often let hold us back. And the bit that I realized, and I say that because yes, I got this comment, but for everybody else at the event, I'm not sure they even took notice. Granted, they didn't come and say anything, but this is where we hold ourselves back because we worry about what other people think. In reality, they're probably too focused on their own crap, what they've got going on, what's important to them. Because again, they're living their life. They're trying to build their story and their journey. And, you doing something is like, okay, that may be, a momentary thing. Half of them will not pay any attention to it whatsoever because it's not important for them. So that's where we need to do away with perception. We need to break free of that chain, because if we can stop worrying less about what other people think, we can take the action that's going to move us forward.
Yes, there's so much freedom in letting go of that letting go of the fear of perception. And I think the whole thing around perception and people's projections is just so interesting and funny, because most people are so self-conscious and self-involved, and they're going to pick out the outfit and be worried or hear a certain comment and be so worried about what everyone else is thinking. And the reality is most of those other people are caught up in their own heads, worried about their version of all of those things, and they couldn't care less about whatever you are so worried about. And what I really like about your story too is, like, you know what? Sometimes something's going to come up and our fear is going to happen and someone's going to say some sort of comment, and it's not the end of the world. Like, that fear of how we play it up and we're so scared of isn't actually so bad. Like, sure, they have that comment and it means more for their reality and their thoughts than it does about us. And we can carry on and just keep being ourselves, wearing the things that make us happy, living our life in the way we want to live it, without being so chained down by that fear and perception and all of those other things.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I go back to the whole sort of reason for the book is to help people uncover those chains, and I guess reframe them in a way that somebody can read and go, yeah, that sort of makes sense. Okay, I can start to see this, how it's showing up in my own life. And for some people, it's great. They may say, actually, no, this one's not relevant for me. This one's not relevant for me. But this one here, this one, yeah, I can see that. I can see how that's showing up. Okay, that's something that I can then think about and work on. So it will be different for different people. But like anything, Once you uncover, it's there. You can deal with it. You can address it. If you don't know that there's an issue, nothing's going to change.
Exactly. That awareness piece is really the first step when we can see what's going on and be able to bring that curiosity to it and have that motivation to make those different changes and use those different tools. That's where things really start to happen. And none of that takes place if we don't have that awareness. I'm curious, you did touch on relationships as being one really core piece, as well as the fear and the perception. I'm wondering what you've noticed is the hardest chain for people to break free from. Is it some of those, or is there something else that comes to mind?
Normally, it is the fear and perception, because those are the mental images. So that's why they're chains at level 3, because it's about what's going on between your ears. And often that is the hardest thing to change. The freedom tracker that I outline in the book, it's sort of a log and a progress tracker type thing. Again, that's much easier for the chains at level 1. So gaining the knowledge, stopping the convenient actions, thinking about the relationships that we've touched on. Those, am I spending more or less time with people? Am I gaining knowledge or not? Am I watching the extra episode or not? Am I eating the extra slice of pizza or not? Those things are easier. They're self-directed. It's about the actions that we take. The mental images at level 3, those are the ones that are tougher to break, because it's about the mindset. It's about shifting that to say, I'm going to stop worrying. Or if I recognize that I'm worrying, I'm going to catch myself and say, you really should not be thinking about worrying. Okay, let's think about something more positive. It takes a bit more work.
Yeah, it really does. And I think that's where a lot of people get stuck or hit a plateau, because they have that awareness piece. They create the plans, they change their lifestyle, they know all of these different things that they want to do and take action of. And yet it's still these stories going on in our heads that continue to hold us back and pop up in all of these different ways, because there's all of these different layers, and we can overcome one of them and then, here's another one that is popping up in this other area. And it takes more time and a different approach to be able to work through more of those self-led limitations that we have.
Yeah. And this is where I write about it. It's like, if you identify the chains that you have in your life, great. Yes, that's the first part. So the first step in breaking them is to assess. Then it's to understand what you could do differently. Then it's about introducing those new patterns of behavior, new beliefs, and then repeating what works and changing what doesn't. And I think thinking about those, certainly those mental ones, yes, you said there are layers, absolutely. So we can break free of a chain. We then grow and develop. We put ourselves into a new situation. Those chains can come back. But if we've already got the tools and techniques to assess them, to understand how we can break them, we can do it again. And so, the simple example that I give is speaking on stage in front of 100 people, okay? Public speaking is one of the greatest fears across society, because we're worried about what people think of us and that perception. Getting to a point of feeling comfortable speaking in front of 100 people, great. You break free of that chain. It just becomes part of who you are. You can get up on stage, you can rock it. But that chain may come back if somebody comes and asks you and says, do you want to speak in front of 1,000 people? Because suddenly your mind goes racing and you're like, there's more people, there's going to be lights, it's a bigger room. Oh my God, what am I going to say? And so that chain comes back. We have to keep going and say, okay, I know how to break this. I'm going to take the action. I'm going to have to go through it. It's going to be uncomfortable to start with. Maybe I'll do some prep and some practice, get some coaching and guidance, and work through it. I know the steps that I have to take. But yes, some of the chains can come back as we grow and we change as individuals.
Yeah, it really is a lifelong journey. And with public speaking, what comes to mind is like, oh, we can do this thing, have this talk, and then even just changing the topic can have this completely different set of fears and negative self-talk that comes because we might be more comfortable presenting ourselves in a certain way, speaking about a certain thing. And then when it comes to something that's a little bit more vulnerable or hits us in a little bit more tender spots, is this whole other level of things that we need to work through. And there can be that awareness piece and having the tools to be able to work through the things. And I personally really like bringing in different somatics to it and going through on an emotional side and into the body to be able to work through those things and allow it to move through you. And there's a piece of it too in just doing the thing and saying yes, taking the leap of faith, being scared and nervous and having those thoughts and just doing it anyway.
So a great example. I set myself a year-long challenge to record a video, so a selfie video, 2-minute video with a message or a thought for the day, post it every day for a year. Initially, it was horrible. I hated it. I felt really uncomfortable. I stumbled over my words. I didn't know what to say. But it got easier. The more I did it, the more I got into that routine of, okay, yeah, it's about this time of the day. I'm going to record my message. Here's what's happening in the day. Think about it. Okay, record it, post it. We just have to take that action. Yes, it feels uncomfortable to start with, but if we are consistent with that action, that's when we see the progress. And that's where I created a phrase in my book about freedom. Excuse me. I took each letter of the word freedom and thought about, okay, what does freedom represent for me? How do I get freedom? What does it mean? And so each letter is a word and it creates a phrase, and that is focused repetition enables experiences, desires, opportunities, and money.
Can you say it again?
Focused repetition enables experiences, desires, opportunities, and money. But we need that focused repetition.
That's so true.
That's what moves the needle.
Yeah, it really does. I'm a big Arnie fan and recently listened to his newest book on Audible, and he calls it reps, putting those reps in. And so we'll talk about that a lot with my husband and with other people. It's all about that focused repetition and just continuing to do it and having that dedication and that discipline. And when you stay true to that, like, of course, it's going to work out. Of course, you will open yourself up to those experiences and opportunities and money. I can't remember every little piece of that freedom part, but when you stay consistent in doing those repetitions, it just unfolds. It truly does.
That's it. It's certainly something that I have recognized in my own life, and where I've been able to say, yeah, I am being consistent. I'm taking the action. I can see things starting to change, building those relationships and the connections and the network. And, that's what sometimes brings the opportunities, because I'm willing to put myself out there. I'm exploring, I'm seeing who's doing what, where there may be some synergies. Okay, has that led to yes, opportunities that are turned into money? Absolutely. But I think we have to get out there. We have to start taking that action, whether it is changing our environments, changing time, time we spend with people and who we spend that time with. Taking the action in terms of gaining visibility. If we're trying to build a business, it's all about taking that action.
It really is. And perhaps that weaves into my next question as we wrap things up is, do you have any specific advice or messages that you would like to share for those kind of more on those beginning middle stages of really embracing their unapologetic authenticity?
Yeah, great question. So I look at it from two dimensions, okay? The first is understanding who you are, what's important to you. Okay, so I've spoken about pink shorts, yellow shorts, flowery shirts, all that sort of stuff. That is just part of who I am. That's part of who I've always been. And yes, there have been times where it's like, I'm going into the office, okay, maybe I just need jeans and a shirt, just toe the party line, make everybody feel comfortable rather than make them feel inadequate because they can't cope with great colours. So understanding who you are, and this is a journey that I've also been on myself. So if I think about what I'm doing right now, I'm helping female coaches with their tech, sales funnels, email automation. That's after spending 20 years working in tech. And I was reluctant to continue working in tech. I wanted to move away. I'd written the book. I'd created the video course on the back of that. I wanted to help people and help them uncover and break free of their chains. And then enough people came to me and said, yeah, but Phil, you've got experience here and a skill set that can help people. Why would you not use that? So yes, you can do the stuff with the book, but you've also got 20 years of experience here that you're thinking of throwing away. And again, it was that realization for me. It's like, actually, that's true. So for me, and knowing who I am, yes, tech is part of that. I just need to reframe it to say, how do I want to use that skill set, that experience? So understanding who we are, what makes us tick. For me, it's challenge. It's, okay, can I solve this problem? How can I fit the pieces together? How can I solve this challenge and work through this situation? It's the flexibility and the freedom. So understanding who we are, what makes us tick and is important to us is the first dimension. The second dimension is what we want. Because a lot of people, again, they, college, job, marriage, kids, mortgage. And not to say that that's wrong, but if that's what you truly want, fantastic, go for it. But if you're in a situation and you're going, not sure about this, doesn't feel right, the question is, have you actually sat down and properly thought about what it is that you do want and how you want to live your life? And that's where actually the start of the book is helping people answer that question. I take them through an exercise. It's called What's the Tale of Your Life? And tale is a 4-quadrant grid. Each quadrant relates to something different. So T is for time. How do you want to use your time? A is for the activities that you want to do on a regular basis. So for me, scuba diving is a freedom activity. So I want to do that regularly. Okay, so it's like, okay, can I do that at least once a month? Because that's an activity that makes me feel great. It's how I want to use my time. L is about location. Where do you want to be? Is it just for holidays? Is it you actually want to move somewhere around the world and experience something different? And then E is about the experiences that you want to have. So those may be the one-offs that, you think about, you see in a magazine, or, somebody tells you about. It's like, oh yeah, that would be great. You may only do it once. And it may not be next year. It may be 5 years down the line, but still thinking about it to say, okay, now I have a picture of what I want to work towards, helps us start charting that path to get there. But that's the thing, a lot of people don't take that time to really work out what it is that they want.
That's so true. And I love how your quadrant has nothing to do with accomplishments or ticking those boxes or any of those like traditional life markers for shaping your life. It's really about, how do you want to live? How do you want to spend your time, those experiences, all of those things. I really like that shift and how you've laid that out. And as a side note, you sound like you have some pretty cool hobbies between skydiving and scuba diving, and I'm sure there's some other interesting ones.
Sadly, I can't do anymore, so that was before the injury. Since the injury, that's on the list of things
Fair
that
enough.
I now should not do, along with playing rugby, so I've had to give that up. But yeah, it's about how we want to use our time, because if I think about that injury, and I know people have been through similar situations, it's like, that could have been the end for me. If that injury had been any worse, as it is right now, my head is slightly twisted to the right because of the impact. The vertebrae is twisted. It impinges the nerve, and I get pain in my shoulder and my chest every now and again, sharp shooting pains like a lightning bolt. I think I got off lightly, okay? That could have been worse. So I am now of that, it's like, okay, yeah, how do I want to spend my time? What are those experiences that I want? What is it that I want to do? What do I want to explore? Where do I want to go? Because life is short. And doing all of those things and those markers that you mentioned, if we think about them, and this is where I love Vishen Lakhiani's book, The Code of the Extraordinary Mind, those markers are society markers. They're not necessarily markers for us as individuals. So we have to question their importance. Are we doing them to appease everybody else and fit in? Are we doing them for us? If we're not doing them for us, why bother? What's the point? You just end up wasting time, energy, effort, money on things that aren't important to you. That doesn't make any sense to me. You know, Vishen in his book, and I reference it in mine, he talks about the bullshit rules of society. And there are a lot of them. And again, it's like, well, do we need those? Is that how we want to live our lives? Or are there things that we want to do differently? And so we're going to chart our own path.
Yes, and that's really how we shift into that life of fulfillment and freedom, by being intentional about how we want to live our life, not the things we want to do or the ways we want to fit in. And you know what? We will find people to fit in with, even when we're flying our freak flag. Like you can find your sense of belonging in those different things. We don't need to be, again, chained to these expectations, this safe sense of belonging. And like you said, it's just a waste of our time, a waste of our energy. Life is so short. Like, why are we putting so much importance on these societal expectations? We really need to bring it into ourselves. How do we want to live? How do we want to lead? How do we want to serve? If we have families, how do we want to raise our families, spend our time together? That's what's truly important. And when you focus on that, the other things don't matter as much. And the things that are in alignment, they just come because we are doing the things that are aligned for us and that feel good. So thank you. I love that take and that perspective on that. I think it's so important. For those that have really enjoyed this conversation, as I have, how can they get in touch with you? How can they find your book, connect with you on social media, all of the things?
Facebook and LinkedIn are the two main channels. So you can connect with me on there, just search for my name. Connect, send me a DM, any of those things. Happy to have conversations and chat to people. For the book, it's available on Amazon. So it's called Finally Find Freedom. It's got a nice bright orange cover. And for those who like the audio side of things, I have actually recorded a 3-episode mini podcast, which goes into the chains, different levels of chain, 4 steps to break them. So each episode is about 15 minutes each. So I've taken the book and condensed it. That's available for free. It's just a quick registration form. So that, again, you can come into my universe, get my thoughts and take on all these crazy things going on in life. So that's available at www.3lifesecrets.com. So it's the number 3 and then the words lifesecrets.com. So each of the episodes, there's 3 episodes, 3 life secrets. So it's the chains, it's the levels, and it's the steps to breaking the chains. And those are the secrets that I go through.
Oh, that's great. And easily digestible in those 15-minute episodes. So that sounds great. I will make sure we have all of that linked below for everyone who is interested. Thank you so much for being here today, Philip. It has been great conversation, and I really appreciate the perspective you put out into the world and how you help others. And thank you for those that have been listening and following along.
Thank you, Janine.
Thanks. Thank you for joining us inside the Unapologetic with Janine McKinnon podcast. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you feel called, I would so appreciate it if you shared about this episode in your stories or left us a review to help us reach more women in their unapologetic authenticity journey. Until next time, trust your inner wisdom and make some magic.